In the book of Daniel, the 3rd chapter and the 18th verse, you will see these words, "But if not." That's the text and the title. For the sake of context and reference, read the entire 3rd chapter of the book of Daniel. You heard the phrase, perhaps you have used it yourself. It goes something like this: maybe and maybe not. Living the laudable life in the Lord encompasses confidence, uncompromising, unyielding confidence, a kind that will not break, that won't bend, that won't bow, that won't surrender to circumstance, one that can't be crushed, one that can't be crumbled, and one that will take a risk with God. I've often been told since my childhood that God can do anything but fail. I heard my father preach about the power and the presence and the person of God. I've heard my mother, who is a devout 90-year-old child of God, sing about God's power and person and presence. I've always heard people say the Lord can make a way out of no way. The Lord can pick you up. The Lord can turn you around. The Lord can open doors that no man can close. And the Lord can close doors that no one can open. And the Lord can do for you what no one else can do. But my question is, if not, if in fact you've seen what the Lord has done for others, and in that you've seen the Lord make a way and heal and lift and bless and secure and protect and provide for and prosper others, and you have been praying the same prayers, you have been holding on to the same hope, and you've been believing for the same results, but for you it's a maybe or maybe not. You are contending, beloved, with a circumstance that finds you between trust and indecision, confidence and indecisiveness. You are torn between commitment and caving in. The question is, when the Lord leaves you at a point in life to where you don't know what's coming next, what will your response be? And beloved, quite frankly, I have seen the Lord work. I have seen the Lord come through because of the exercise of faith. But I humbly submit to you today, I believe God is going to do something. I don't know what God is going to do. I don't know how God is going to do it. And I don't know when God is going to do it. And I don't know where God is going to do it, but I do know this: he's going to do something. I'm not clairvoyant. I don't read crystal balls. I don't consult with gypsies. I don't believe in hoodoo and voodoo or black magic. I haven't had my palm read. I don't have people sprinkling dust for me to travel. I don't have horseshoes and good luck charms pinned over my doorway. I don't know what God is going to do. I don't know when God is going to do it. I don't know where God is going to do it, and I don't know how God is going to do it. But when it comes to your fate, I believe he's going to do something. And I believe it will be something similar to what he did for a few men of faith, namely Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You find their story in the 3rd chapter of the book of Daniel. They are literally prisoners of war, or they were prisoners of war as a result of the Babylonian or Chaldean invasion of Jerusalem 587 years before Christ's appearance on earth. And beloved, while in this pagan land of Babylon, they encountered the thwarted theology of a pagan king named Nebuchadnezzar, who, for self-gratification, issued decrees that required the citizens of Babylon and the captives who were prisoners of war to pay homage to his deified objects. And this idol god was to therefore be worshipped and relished as the god of Babylon, and whoever refused to bow to this deified object, this idol god, were subject to capital punishment, namely to be burned in a fiery furnace. And while others bowed, there were 3 who did not stoop, because for them it was standing time. And their standing time called for confidence and uncompromising confidence in God. The kind that won't break, that won't bend, and won't bow. The kind that won't crumble, and the kind that can't be trusted. And as the Lord's will would have it, they survived. I want to raise a question, however, against the backdrop of your own fate, your own predicament, our collective circumstance, which calls for an exercise of uncompromising confidence. Personally, I'll take my chances with God, the God who made the world just with the very emanations of his voice, the God whose signature is on all of creation, in the majestic mountains with their lofty heights and snow caps. I'll take my chances with God, the one who scooped out the ocean and gave the sky its blue ethers. I'll take my chances with God, the God who made you and me out of the dust of the ground and gave us extensive human ingenuity. I'll take my chances with God, and I'll take my chances for the same reasons that Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego took. And what were they? These young men stood. They would not bow. They would not break. They were given extra opportunity to bow to this deified object. but they would not forfeit their faith. And they would not forfeit their faith, beloved, because they knew that God was still on the throne. Therefore, they had to live with their conscience. Beloved, there are some people who can condescend to a corrupt level of conduct and course of action, and it never bothers them. They can occupy the most powerful seats in government and indulge in all kind of demonic behavior, and it never bothers them. They can mistreat people, demean people, belittle people, and belabel people with all kinds of derogatory identifications, and it never bothers them. They can sleep with porn stars and then run for presidents and court foreign countries so as to get in and remain in the most powerful position in the free world, and it never bothers them. They could see themselves losing in a major election and would attempt to hang up an election in a courtroom because it will never bother them. But there are some things I can't do because I've got to live with my conscience. These young men were given a chance to bow to this idol god, but they had to live with the fact that had they bowed, they will have expressed more fear of a king than faith in God. And beloved, there comes a time when you got to exercise your confidence and decide whether you're going to have faith or whether you're going to flee. They would not surrender their faith to a deified object. Some years ago, I recall vividly an incident wherein my father was approached by a young man of our city, and he was candidating for county supervisor. For whatever reason, he had allied with one of the most outstanding congressmen who was then serving in the United States Congress. It turns out that he was a staunch Dixiecrat, a part of that political party that spoke of support for minority communities in public, but whose private actions and votes continued to perpetuate the plight of people of minority ranks. Well, he knew that my father was very influential as a pastor in the city and therefore carried with him a lot of votes. So he invited him out on a fishing expedition. And while out in the Gulf of Mexico, he proposed to my father that he would provide him with a tremendous amount of money if only my father would endorse his candidacy. My father said he'd reel in his line, back in his line, having casted it out into the Gulf. He reeled his line back in, put up his tackle box, and they cranked up the boat, and he said, "I'm not for sale. Let's go back to the coastline." Beloved, you got to live with your conscience. If you've been born again, blood bought, blood washed, blood cleansed, and heaven bound, what if the world offers you silver and gold and great positions? Beloved, you still have to live with your conscience. It is unfortunate, and it is very disturbing to me to see those who came from the bottom and those who came from the ghetto and those who came from humble beginnings all of a sudden ally themselves with people who offer them more money, but yet when they engage in public policy would continue to perpetuate the plight of the people who are in the same ghetto that these individuals have come from. I don't care how well you can rap, you ought to have some integrity. I don't care how popular you become, you ought to have some character. I don't care how often you're exposed on television, you ought to have some dignity about yourself. The reason why I can't do some things is because I've got to live with myself. If God does not come through for me, at least I took a chance and exercised my confidence in God. Maybe he will and maybe he won't. But if not, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego decided to cast their fate to God. And they wouldn't compromise because they were expecting some particular company. I thank God for the awesome presence of God. God is omnipotent. That is, God is all powerful. And God is omniscient. That is, God knows all things. There is nothing that escapes the mind of God, and that God is eternal minded. But God, there's another attribute, a characteristic of God that naturally belongs to God and makes God God, and it is the fact that God is omnipotent. That is, God is all power. There is no power beyond the power of God. He is the great, he is the being from whom all other powers are derived. And whatever powers there are on earth, they may be powers and powers that are extremely powerful, but God is all power. And these young men were not discovering of this power in Babylon. They knew about the power of God in Jerusalem, and they didn't wait until their backs were against the wall to exercise their religion and stand on their faith. They had religion and faith before they ever came or before they were ever brought to Babylon. And they therefore stood their ground, exercised their faith, cast their faith to God, and exercised their uncompromising confidence in the Creator. And they retorted and responded to the king with these last words: O King, God in this regard may deliver us, and he may not. But if not, we will not bow to your idol God, and we'll take our chance with the great expectation of some particular company. I believe God, beloved, allows us to run out of options, because as long as you've got options, you have the privilege of taking other options. But when you have nothing else going for you and no one else there for you, you should always cast your confidence on Almighty God and look for the Lord to show up in due time. And I'm a living witness that he'll show up, and when he shows up, he shows out in a mighty way. Just a few days ago, my beloved pastor, the Dr. Sterling L. Jones, passed away, the great pastor of the Mount Zion Baptist Church of Detroit, Michigan. And we now have a wonderful pastor there as interim, Bishop Charles Middleton. And as unfamiliar as he may be with most of the parishioners, I, being one of the sons of the church, have been called upon to eulogize many of the faithful members of the Mount Zion family. And one of the mothers of the church passed away. The family called and asked me to come. And it turns out that the mother of the church was in a nursing home, and her daughter-in-law, whose husband was once a director for one of the choirs here at our church, she was determined to take this mother in. And on her way to get her and pick her up and bring her into her home, she had a heart attack and has been hospitalized for such reasons as that. And beloved, we went on to that funeral. Her brother, however, said he tried to call me, tried to get in touch with me. He wanted prayer. He needed counseling. He needed guidance. He said, I couldn't get a hold of my pastor. And Reverend, I couldn't get a hold of you. And my sister had just had a heart attack. And I tell you, I didn't have anywhere else to go, so I just went for what I know. And I knew exactly what the brother was talking about. And when you can't find friends, when you can't find family, when you don't have finance, when you don't have resources, when you don't have wherewithals, can't find your sorors, can't find your frat brothers, can't find your pastor, can't find your doctor, can't get a hold of your lawyer, can't find your neighbor, you got to go for what you know. Since you know he'll pick you up, you got to go for that. Since you know he'll lift you and turn things around, you got to go for that. Don't you shake, don't you bend, don't you break, don't you bow. You got to take the words of a young brother Ray Hunter, who said these words, I just had to go for what I know. Yes, you're born again, saved, and sanctified, but when your back is against the wall and you can't find anybody else, beloved, and God leaves you in a position to where it may be and it may not be, you got to cast your faith unto him and say, if not, because I'll go for what I know. I've got to bid you good day. These young men, they would not break, bend, or bow. They exercised their confidence in Almighty God because they wanted to leave a credible legacy. There are some people who have some rather horrible, hideous, and heinous, and hellish history. Those who would take the lives of millions in Germany and put them in gas chambers and kill them, all because they're of a different nationality and of a different expression of faith. There are those, beloved, who have terrible legacies. But if you want your name to be on the right side of history, it may infer that you would take a bullet on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. If you're going to take this risk with God and your legacy becomes lasting, you may have to give up 27 years of your life in a South African prison. If, in fact, you're going to have this kind of legacy, you got to emulate the gestures and gyrations and faith of Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego, who said, we will not bow to your idol God. And the God we serve, we know, is able, but if not, we will not compromise our confidence. This is how they resolve to have their history written. I leave you when I tell you, we have a family of our church, the Huffmans and Hearns, family relatives of the great prize fighter Tommy Hearns, who during the last years of his career decided to have a fight in his home city of Detroit. And at that fight, he fought a fighter whose ring name was Mad Dog. And what Mad Dog's real name is evades my memory and research. But he fought Mad Dog. He won the fight, but it was not of his best Tommy Hearns-like performance. And at the end of the fight, Tommy leaned on the ropes and took a microphone and said to the crowd, I know this wasn't my best performance, and I really don't want to go out this way. And beloved, he was hailed as victor of the fight, even though the performance was not as he would like for it to have been. I believe Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, beloved, took their chances with God because they didn't want to go out by serving an idol God. Beloved, I will always be mindful of the fact that I've got to answer to God for what I do in life. And I've got to realize, and you must realize, beloved, that there is a legacy that you will leave behind. Here is how the great gospel duo, the Consolers, put it: may the work I've done speak for me. May the service I've done speak for me. When I'm resting in my grave and there is nothing that can be said, may the works I've done speak for me. I will not go out like that, beloved. I've allied with God, and only with the Lord does he bring you and me victory. I declare victory today because he is the one who enables me to win all of my struggles. Maybe he will come at a certain time of my appointment, and maybe he won't, but beloved, I'm going to hang in there with God. I believe I ought to tell you, storm clouds may rise, storm winds may blow, but I'll tell the world, wherever I go, I found a Savior, and he's sweet, I know. God bless you. God keep you, is my prayer. Hang in there with God, and God will hang in there with you.
Are you ready to put a seed in the ground? Well, here at St. James, we have 3 ways to give. First, you can go to the St. James website and tap the online giving tab and give via PayPal. Secondly, you can give via Givelify. All you have to do is go and download the app Givelify, locate the St. James Missionary Baptist Church, create an account, follow the prompts, and then give. Thirdly, you're able to give by bringing your tithes and offerings to the church. There are times that you can do this. The first time is on Sundays from 10 to 12 p.m. And then secondly, on Wednesdays from 6 to 8 p.m. Please make sure you're following those times. And then finally, you're also able to mail in your offerings. We are asking that you do not send cash, but only mail in checks. If there are any other questions that you may have about giving, please email us at info@stjamescmbc.org.
We will remain virtual for the month of March. Again, just for the month of March, we will remain virtual. Our 10 a.m. services will be held via Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and live stream. We will gather together Easter Sunday, April 4th. First Sunday in April, we will all gather in the sanctuary and worship God together. We can't wait to see you. To all St. James High School and college grads, the College Prep Ministry would like to remind you all that the class of 2021 graduation ceremony will be held on Sunday, June 27th. The deadline to submit your information is May 16th. You can submit your information via email at thejamescollegeprep@gmail.com. St. James, next month we will be celebrating our 94th church anniversary. Wow, 94 years, St. James. That is amazing. Faithfulness leads to victory, and that's 1 John 5:4. We will be celebrating the whole month with March Gladness, starting March 7th through the 31st. We will have weekly Bible studies featuring Dr. Tellis Chapman from Galilee Missionary Baptist Church in Detroit of this month. With March Gladness, we will have special guest speakers like Dr. John Adolph, Farland, and Reverend R.A. Hendricks every Sunday of the month of March. Also, we have Sunday soloists for March Gladness. Y'all hear me? Sunday special guest soloists. Those soloists include Kim McFarland, Ron Poindexter, Crystal Rucker, and Latanya Blair. You don't want to miss March Gladness next month, March 7th through the 31st, starting at 7 p.m. on Wednesdays and 10 a.m. worship services, virtually still streaming via Facebook live stream, or YouTube. I don't know about y'all, but this has made me glad. Listen up. The St. James Missionary Baptist Church 62nd Choir Anniversary featuring Leandria Johnson has been on until further notice. If you purchased a ticket and would like a refund, St. James will be offering refunds March 6th through the 13th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the St. James main campus. That's March 6th through the 13th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. You can go to the church and get your refund. Starting in April, you will need to contact the church at 512-928-2753 to arrange a time for your refund. We do apologize, but this will be postponed for a later date. If you're just tuning in, or you've missed any information, or you need any contacts, you can visit our website at www.stjamescmbc.org. We want to thank you and welcome.
We've seen you, and we just wanted to say thank you for worshiping with us at St. James.